There are a handful of books that I can emphatically state changed my life. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is most definitely one of them. And I'm certain I'm not the only one to make that claim. There are countless many out there who would insist the same, including, perhaps even you, the listener. The book not only recounts Frankl's first-hand experiences of enduring the unspeakable horrors of the Nazi Holocaust, it imbues the reader with an incandescent sense of awe and wonder at the human spirit and all that it can endure and achieve. That juxtaposition of horror and inspiration makes Man's Search for Meaning an unrivaled masterpiece. Viktor Frankl was forced into 4 different concentration camps during the Holocaust: Theresienstadt, Auschwitz, Dachau, and Turkheim. Not only did he endure unspeakable abuse, torture, starvation, and humiliation, his parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife were all killed during one of the worst atrocities in all of human history. The wellspring of wisdom and insight Frankl offers has to be understood in the context of all that he suffered. Without that understanding, one might reduce Frankl's wisdom to mere platitudes. Instead, because all that he endured is so unimaginable and unrivaled for most, if not all of us, his wisdom floats upon unfathomable depths of experience and understanding. I can't in good faith make a comparison of my own experiences to Frankl's. And that's not at all to diminish my own hardships or anyone else's either. Instead, that recognition allows me to gain perspective and provides greater objectivity and understanding over what I've encountered and endured, rather than drown in the shallow waters of solipsism and despair. That, I hope, is the beginning of wisdom, and Frankl's work provides one of the most compelling invitations to just that. Hopes, dreams, and expectations are a necessary part of life. They can also drive us to bitterness and despair when unrequited. Often in our hope and exuberance for love, success, or any myriad of worldly aspirations, we fail to notice our wings melting, and like Icarus, we plummet back to an even colder, harder reality when forced to reckon with our failings. As such, "Why me?" can be a constant refrain in our lives. What Frankl teaches us is to ask instead, why not? Here's a man who rose from the despondent ashes of unimaginable hardship and loss and emerged an objectively better human being. It must at least be possible for the rest of us to also do so from our own trials and tribulations. Frankl reframes our expectations toward life, putting the onus of responsibility upon our own shoulders instead of upon circumstances that are quite often simply beyond our control. Frankl recounts the torturous days in various concentration camps and writes, quote, "It did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life, daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual," unquote. If you're at all familiar with Stoicism, you can hear the echo of the great Stoic and former slave Epictetus, who stated, quote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Frankl's insight, juxtaposed with the horrors he endured, offers a complete paradigm shift in perspective for all of us. It encourages us to no longer shake our fists at the high heavens when faced with loss, defeat, or suffering, but to focus on responding with patience, grace, conviction, and character. Man's Search for Meaning also takes pointed aim at the incessant chase for worldly success and achievement as a source of meaning for us. Not that these are inherently bad pursuits or should be avoided in favor of austerity or monasticism, but rather they ought not to define us given their ephemeral and capricious nature. Frankl argues, quote, "But today's society is characterized by achievement orientation, and consequently it adores people who are successful and happy, and in particular, it adores the young. It virtually ignores the value of all those who are otherwise, and in doing so blurs the decisive difference between being valuable in the sense of dignity and being valuable in the sense of usefulness," unquote. That could not be more of a prescient statement in our day and age, where so many find themselves beleaguered by social media and an endless carousel of comparisons to those with seemingly more or less in a worldly sense. More importantly, Frankl and the wisdom found in Man's Search for Meaning provide an answer as to why we suffer. Frankl argues that suffering and sacrifice are primary sources of meaning and edification. Quote, "Dostoevsky said once, 'There is only one thing I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings.' These words frequently came to my mind after I became acquainted with those martyrs whose behavior in camp, whose suffering in death, bore witness to the fact that the last inner freedom cannot be lost. It can be said that they were worthy of their sufferings. The way they bore their sufferings was a genuine inner achievement. It is this spiritual freedom, which cannot be taken away, that makes life meaningful and purposeful," unquote. When I applied Frankl's wisdom to any number of tribulations I faced, be it poverty, heartbreak, loneliness, and so on, I found myself revitalized, imbued with purpose and meaning, and even a small guidepost for those around me, if and only if I could also endure with grace and composure the trials I faced. Elsewhere, Frankl states, quote, "In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice," unquote. This notion of suffering being wed to sacrifice is profound. Sacrifice is a necessary part of existence. In fact, it's inescapable. Frankl's quote reminds me of William James's statement about religion and sacrifice found in his work, The Varieties of Religious Experience. James writes, quote, "When all is said and done, we are in the end absolutely dependent on the universe, and into sacrifices and surrenders of some sort, deliberately looked at and accepted, we are drawn and pressed as into our only permanent positions of repose. Now in those states of mind which fall short of religion, the surrender is submitted to as an imposition of necessity, and the sacrifice is undergone at the very best without complaint. In the religious life, on the contrary, surrender and sacrifice are positively espoused. Even unnecessary givings up are added in order that the happiness may increase. Religion thus makes easy and felicitous what in any case is necessary," unquote. The reality is that suffering and sacrifice are inherent aspects of existence. In fact, the very first noble truth of Buddhism even states as such in so many words: life is suffering. And so often our feeble attempts to avoid suffering and sacrifice lead to our most profound moments of despair. When we try to sweep our trials and tribulations under the rug, or mask our pain and suffering with fleeting pleasures such as food, sex, drugs, or alcohol, our lot in life worsens immeasurably. And I can certainly state that from my own first-hand experiences and the maze of dereliction that often directed me down forsaken paths. Rather than avoiding suffering and sacrifice, both Frankl and James encourage us to embrace it as a vital source of meaning and purpose in our lives. As such, Frankl's following statement reveals layers upon layers of profundity as we get older and experienced. Quote, What is to give light must endure burning," unquote. Beyond meaning and sacrifice, the greatest source of inspiration and courage for Viktor Frankl during the Holocaust was the memory of his beloved wife. And he had no idea if she was dead or alive at the time. As Frankl insists, that did not matter to him. What he did know was that the love they had was transcendent, rooted in eternity in a manner impossible to describe or fully comprehend, except when we're finally off into the big numbers high above us. The love for his wife reminds me of Beatrice in Dante's Divine Comedy, a romantic earthly love transformed into a higher heavenly one, as echoed by Frankl's own words. Quote, "For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love," unquote. And amid so much loneliness and isolation in our day and age, it need not be only romantic love. Love is less about what one receives than it is about what one gives, and one can give away love to any and all as freely as a gentle breeze on a cool summer day. And in doing so, find an abundance of meaning, contentment, and even joy. But I'm getting ahead of myself now, friends, so I'll stop for now. Have you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning? Did it change you at all? Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. As always, I'd love to hear from you.